So just before I share my thoughts on this, I just want to reiterate that the situational control posture isn't really a posture, and although sometimes we may demonstrate it in a certain way, it's very much a dynamic tactic posture. We're not even at the stage at this point where we're going physical, okay? We're just getting ourselves into a state which will allow us the greatest amount of options and the biggest amount of redundancy. So basic key points of this idea, or this situational control idea, is number one, we need to have a staggered stance such that we're able to move in any direction, and that we've got a little bit of stability that we can bed down into if we need to, okay? If we need to go reactive, we can easily bed down and be stable, or we can escape very quickly. If we're flat-footed and lined up like this, it's much more likely we're going to be taken off balance. The next thing we need to have in play is our hands. We need to make sure our hands are not down, but they're up. And like I said before, occupying this space between you and the potential threat. So, and the way we need to do that is to be natural, just like I'm doing now, okay? So I need to be talking with my hands. And you notice that my hands are moving around and they're just literally occupying this area, okay? And thinking about this box, this body box from the shoulders to the hips. I could have had both hands up covering the shoulder lines. I could have both hands more covering the center. I could have one up and one down, okay, it really doesn't matter, and it, like I say, it should be a dynamic action. So where does this occur in Okinawan Karate Kata? Well, some people might say that it doesn't occur at all in the kata, okay, and that's fair enough. You know, you might suggest that the kata is only really there to deal with acts of violence, so we're past that situational control point, okay? My personal opinion is that it does exist in the kata, okay? It's just not maybe so explicitly found in there, all right? We do find positions in kata that indicate some form of index. Because if I've got one hand out, even if it's touching the opponent, okay, then it is a type of situational control. So we do see in kata sometimes the hands come out like this before we punch. Or the hands roll up from this position before they shoot out. But what I like to do is bring your attention back to the fundamental ukiwaza patterns, because all kata are derived from these 6 fundamental movement pathways. So let's take the technique of agiyuki, okay, the rising receipt. So I've got one hand up here and one hand on my hip, right? Now most people, when they see this movement and this movement, they're going to see this as being the starting point and this has been the end point, okay? And then I've got a new start point, and then this is my end point. So you're seeing those 2 frames, okay? Whereas in reality, all the potential lies in between those 2 frames, okay? So let's investigate that a little bit. So when I bring my hands to this position, I've effectively got my hands up occupying this space, okay? They're around about center line, okay, in this position. If I'm to do sotuki, the same thing occurs, okay? There is a point in the movement where my hands are up, both occupying this space. Gedambarai is the same, and Uchiuki is also the same, okay? Even ski and hikite is the same. You know, there is a midpoint in that movement where the hands are up, occupying this space. So we can say that all of the fundamental movement pathways pass through what we would call this central hub, okay? And usually, I'm referenced either on the outside, if for instance I'm going to be blocking inwards with Uchiuki, I'm referenced here or here, or I might be referenced on the midline, okay? Or I might be referenced like in Gedambarai, where I've got one hand up and one hand down, okay? So I'm covering a line here maybe, and a line here, or a line here and a line here. What I'm doing is I'm producing these movements, but I'm falling through this central hub and hitting these particular points or these areas, okay? But because it happens in a dynamic sense, you don't really see it as being an actual position, okay? Because it isn't. So the idea being is that we've got our hands up in this position and this is our starting point. It's not that this is a starting point and this is an end point, or this is a starting point here and then this is an end point. It's this is my starting point, the cover of this space. If my hands are here, I will have a natural tendency to move in a certain direction. If my hands are here, I've got a natural tendency to move in a different direction. If I've got one hand up and one hand down. So this is really the central hub from where situational control occurs, and also where all the fundamental movement patterns start from. And if they all start from there, then we can say that ultimately kata has situational control embedded within it. And of course, remember, situational control is not just pre-fight, okay? You've got to be able to control the situation before anything occurs, anything physical occurs, during anything physical occurring, or after anything physical occurring. So situational control is a concept. It's about controlling the situation that you're in. It just so happens that we have this physical construct of having the hands in play, which puts us in a much better position to make those decisions, whether those decisions are to push, whether they're to cover, whether they're to attack, or whether they're to run. And since our karate kata is based on civilian self-protection, then it's no surprise that situational control is inherently embedded within the movements.